Good morning. Oh, my microphone wasn't in place. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is day 8 of the Do You Rules live stream event series or whatever it is. And I said series and series woke up. And we're talking today about sticking to your decisions. And she's talking to me, so let's do this. Hey Siri, what time is it?
It's 4:13 a.m.
It's 4:13 a.m. I hope you out there grinding. I hope you out there doing what you said you would do and sticking to your decisions. It's interesting. I can see the little blur behind me. It's irritating me, but that's fine. I got my water. I got my chapstick, standard for live events. I got the book I've been reading, which I'm almost done with. I've been talking about it for the past 3, 4 days, I think. I've been reading it now for almost the past 2 weeks, although I took 3 days off. But there's something in here that I wanted to highlight that I don't know is going to make sense yet for the conversation, but I wanted to have at my disposal just in case it made sense for the conversation. And the conversation again will be about sticking to our decisions. Sticking to our decisions. Let me find. Okay. I have the actual. I have a couple of pages highlighted here. This book is crazy, dog. Shout out to my mother in law who got me this book. I guess she thought it would be great for me, and it is. I checked the chat real quick because yesterday we got somebody, and maybe we'll get somebody again. So, again, I hope you're feeling blessed, man. I hope life is bringing to you what you expect from it. And I want to get into sticking to our decisions. It's important, it's critical, and very easy to overlook. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, there's something else on my phone. I think there's a word called sciolists, which I'll get into, which I thought was a dope word. I love the way it's spelled. I love the way it sounds. I love what it means. But if you're in day 8, if you're in day 8 of a new journey or you're somewhere in the process, at this point, you've made decisions. And as I've already mentioned, the biggest decision you can make about your decisions. Yo, what's good? Good morning. I've been looking forward to it too. I started out a little nervous. Red Rose is in the chat. I gotta really follow or learn to follow the etiquette of live streaming with the intention of I guess being able to ensure that the comments are being showed. I don't know that that's. I asked my children again. They're 15 and 12, so to keep up with kind of modern expectations. Although my demographic is not 15 to 12 or 12 to 15, I think I hit a higher demographic and age group. But I want to have the proper form and etiquette. Yesterday, I talked about having an agenda with your thoughts, an agenda with your mind. Because of the professional, I guess, in me, and because of how I like to represent myself and my reputation for life, I like to ensure I follow guidelines. I think guidelines are important. And also because as I've always, as I not always, but I've referenced regularly, I'm a very logical person. So the do you rules and why it's titled that is important because I always say it should be your set of rules and follow your set of rules. That's the biggest rule. But if I know what the rules are and I know what the boundaries are, I know how to play the game. And at minimum, if I know I'm following the rules, then I can hold myself accountable and whomever else is holding me accountable because it takes people and process and even in my relationship with God, how do we hold each other accountable? Well, you said if I just did this, and this is what I could expect. It's the same thing when you're asking for a promotion at work. How do I get a promotion at work? Well, what's your job? Do you do your job to just the expectation or do you exceed expectations? So now on your self-improvement journey, if you're like, yo, I want to work on my body, yo, I want to work on my spirit, yo, I want to work on my skill set. Okay, here's the minimum expectations to break out of this little realm of everybody, like 99% do it this way. You want to be in the 1%. Well, you got to exceed expectations every day. And every time you get to a point where you've reached the maximum level for the level you're on, you got to break through that level, then break through that level, then break through that level, and on and on and on. But in order to do that, you got to know what the rules are. You got to know what the expectations are. So at least you have a baseline fundamental of, all right, there's less for me to think about because I'm a sports guy, right? When I step on the football field, I know the rules of football, basketball, baseball, whatever the sport, soccer. My son's a big soccer fan. There's rules. You follow the rules. It'll help you along the journey. And so I say all that to say there's rules to make your stream appealing. And while I'm a rule breaker, I like to break rules. I like to look at the rules sometimes and say, go fuck yourself, I'm gonna do it my way. But it's more so because I like to build and show new rules more so than follow the. I hate being. I said this in one of my. I don't know if one of my scripted recording sessions. But one of the reasons I want to live this life I want to live is because I like autonomy, and I don't like the idea of autonomy for the sake of I don't want nobody dictating to me, because ultimately I follow God, and so God is my overarching hierarchical power that I look to. But I do like to do it my way. And so in the strive and the urge to do it my way, I learn the rules, I watch how people move, and I like to do it better. That's how I see it. And I create new rules. In any event, Red Rose got me hyped. So two of the things that I wanted to leverage was, one, the word sciolist and sciolism. And then two, possibly, I had shown this already, Red Rose. This is the book I'm reading. This book is philosophy. It's crazy. He blows my mind. It's funny. He in this, he said it would be wise for one to underline and just read the first way through, and then come back and study it. Don't try to pause and look too deep into what I'm saying now, because then you'll miss it. And I think that's an important lesson for us in life. The overarching thought for today's mission in our talk is to stick to your decisions. And sticking to your decisions, depending on where you're at in the journey, depending on the rules you're playing by, is a lot easier said than none. Because at every time you're looking to make a decision, and let's presume this is a new decision, because we're on 1,000 hours of self-improvement journey. You can't stick to decisions. We talked about this yesterday, because we talk about this every day, and either I'm losing my mind or every day feels the same to me. But if you keep making the same decisions you're making today, you'll keep getting the same results you're getting today. And when you look around and like, yo, God, why do I keep getting the same results? God's gonna be like, because you keep doing the same things. It's like running the same play in the game over and over. If you run a play and that play scores you a touchdown, cool, that's great. It may never score you another touchdown because the world, the universe is now ready for that play. They've seen you do it. It's not to say you don't practice it and perfect it, so when it's time to execute, you score the touchdown, but you scored already. Move on to a new play. And so sticking to your decisions, it's one of the things I wanted to drive today is early on in the process. And right now, I'm early on in this process. This is day 8 of, like, I did some lives last year, but they were very clunky, very uncomfortable, very unorganized. I just click record to get a feel and a flow for what the live experience is like. This is day 8 of me going live consistently, pretty much at 4:00 in the morning every day. And so when you make a new decision, and ask yourself this is why we're going to go into sciolism at some point, because sciolism is the idea that someone prefers to be knowledgeable in a space, but isn't really. And with respect to the world, because we have so much information available to us, it seems that we all get a lot of information, like we're receiving it, we're reading it, we're watching it, but a lot of people don't apply it. That's my, yes. The book, try the book, Red Rose, and if you do and it hits you, come back and let us know. That would be dope. And so sciolism, I think a lot of us have it. This is why I'm careful with. I keep saying, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't know what to do for you. I'll share what I do for me, and that's the point I want to drive at some point. I'm my own experiment and guinea pig. When I share something, it's not because I watched, although I'll share what I watched, I'm going to share what I read, but I'm going to share what I read and how it hit me, not how I think it's going to hit you. I share what I did to it. Like, I'll get into dope. I'll get into maybe some of the experiences. I did cold plunges for a year. It took me a year to learn it's not for me. Are there benefits? Yes. If you look at all the online experts, they'll tell you all the reasons you should, and somebody might hear me speak and say, Jeff, you're an idiot. You should do cold plunges. And I'll say, maybe, maybe not, maybe fuck you. I learned to do it my way for a year. I don't want to do it anymore. I know what's right for me. That is the biggest thing again about the do you rules is you set up your rhythms and your patterns. You establish the rules, we know the rules of the game, and now you play it and you call your own plays. And another thing I had this debate with because somebody found out, oh, yo, I heard you were doing the code. It was on a business call, which is always awkward when they bring personal into it. I do have a business friend that I talk personal with, and I guess he shared this information. I was talking with a vendor, and the vendor's like, yo, I heard you do cold plunges. I'm like, yeah, I do cold plunges. What's the temperature? I said, yo, I don't get all technical. I run a really, really cold bath. I have a bath that I can sit in, God bless me with, and I have a stand-up shower. Some days I just put the water to cold in the shower, and I stand in the shower. Some days I put I fill the tub up with cold water. I dump a couple of cups of ice. I sit in it. Some days it's 3 minutes. Some days it's 8 minutes. And we got into this debate of timing. And I said, well, I usually do it after I work out. And one of the reasons I learned to stop doing it is because I was on a journey to put on, I was 230 pounds. I got down to 169 pounds in my journey when I stopped drinking, when I started working out, etc. I'll digress because then I'll start talking about that and I won't stop talking about it. And then I wanted to put on weight because I went from being really heavy and having like 6 chins. That was uncomfortable. Then I got really, 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 really thin. Not to say that I'm really, really, really big now, but for the summer, I had a target of getting to 190 pounds. So what I learned is, on top of eating a lot of protein, that when I got into the cold plunge, especially after a workout, it impacts hypertrophy. So that was one of the impetuses for stopping. I said, it's going to kill my muscle gain. And then also, I'll be real. I hate the cold. I hate the cold in the way of jumping into a shower or a tub. Anyway, back to decisions and back to stylism. So before this dude even got into a cold plunge, he said to me, you should do it as soon as you wake up. I'm like, word? Why? Well, because all the research and all the data, it gives you something to start. And I'm like, yo, okay. I'm never going to do it as soon as I wake up. Oh, but you're going to miss all the benefits. I said, you're not hearing me. I don't care what you say to me. You know what I do when I wake up? I pray and I meditate, and I will never deviate from that. That's my decision. I don't care if God was like, yo, you should really take a shower. You should really take a cold shower. I'm going to look at God like, wait, I prefer to come to you in the morning, and I'm not going to change. And some people might feel uncomfortable with that, but I talked about negotiating. I'm very comfortable in my relationship with God to say, I'm not going to be, it's not to say that I'm being seduced, but I believe God would never direct me to a path I don't need to be going on. And I've already come to the conclusion that the first thing I start my day with is God. Nothing's going to compromise me on that. So when it pops up in my head, that's not God talking to me. That's my decision. And so in that way, the emphasis for today is stick to your decisions. And sticking to your decisions is hard because like the person on the call and like the stylists in today's everybody's an expert world, you're going to feel pressure because that's part of the reason I learned. I think one of the next episodes I'm going to write and script on is the power of silence and the power of listening. But in our journeys, yes. So Red Rose, we have to do what works for us on an individual basis, what we feel in our gut. Your gut is your intuition. Your intuition is because is connected to your mind, body, and spirit in a way that your intuition, your subconscious, you're not always aware, hyper aware of what you're thinking, but your subconscious will never steer you wrong and knows what you really want. That's your God. That's to me is I go into spirituality and God. Don't ever ignore your gut. To Rev Rose's point, please don't ignore your gut. It's you feel it for a reason. Use it. 1,000. That's right. And so in the decision making process, right? Because the thing what I wanted to go into about new processes. Like a lot of times I'll click record and I'm so hyped to start this 8 days in. I start to feel a little flustered. I start to feel like, oh, I wasn't where I wanted to be when I clicked record. The first 2 minutes of this live session was weak and whack. Okay, I got to work on that tomorrow. I already started. But when you're early in the decision-making process, it's easy to feel uncomfortable that, am I doing this right? Is this making the impact it's supposed to make? I don't know. It's day 8. I'll tell you what I learned in my experience in life. Give it at least 100 days. I said this the other day. Give it some time. You can't make reflex decisions on, I think I should be doing this. I think I should be praying in the morning and I should be going on my live stream. And give or take, that's the first 90 minutes of my day. I think that at minimum, if I click record, I dedicate at least 15 minutes. So if I got on at 4:15, it's just about 4:30. I at least met my minimum quota that I'm going to go live for at least 15 minutes. I know I want to start my cardio session at 5 o'clock. I know today I'm not going to get a 0 cardio day, so I probably don't want to go past 5. Cool. Once you commit and make that decision, keep repeating it over and over and over and over and over. To Rev Rose's point, you want to have, this is why we do Saturdays, we reflect, right? And even daily introspection and reflection. Is it working? I don't know. Is it? Answer that to yourself. Ask yourself. Don't. I'm not telling you don't. I believe a lot of times, because I do this, I'm guilty. We get caught up in sharing our experiences with other people. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? They're going to answer for you how they see it. They're not you. You're going to answer a lot of times for them, how you see it. That takes practice to start listening to others as others and having the expectation that others are listening to you as you. No, the ego is very difficult, and I don't mean it as an indictment, but we're the center of our own world, our own worlds. Stumble on some of my words this early. We're very self-centered, and I don't mean that maliciously, but the way that society teaches and introduces us self, it's hard to get over ourselves. So a lot of times when you're asking somebody a question for advice, unless they're really thoughtful about how they give advice, are giving you advice as themselves. So it may not even work for you. So you want to make a decision and stick to it. And then early on in the process, assess and evaluate what's going right, what isn't going right. The things that go right, repeat it. The things that go wrong, delete it. It has to be that ebb and flow of ensuring, I said I was going to do this. I'm doing it. It's not going to be perfect, but I can perfect it. And until I reach the point where I have, yes. And so Rev Rose is saying, sharing our experiences, but knowing that we have our own thought processes. Yes, it's not to say you can't listen to somebody and have an epiphany like, ooh, what they said was dope. But it has to be applied to you, not them, and as you, not them. Difficult. We think it's easy. It's from my experience, when you really start to kind of, I don't want to say elevate as imply that other, I'm so cognizant of people's sensitivity these days. Just understand I speak for me, right? When I elevated myself and I have a different view and I stop looking at things so close, then you see things at an elevated view. That's just the way it is. And when you elevate yourself to realize mind, body, spirit, and separate, then and see other people as they might see themselves, then you start to have these kind of thoughts and things like that. So we're sticking to our decisions. So I would ask of you the way I ask of myself today, if you're 8 days into something new, Is it working? And if it is, repeat it. If it isn't, delete it. Highlight what's working and then figure out why you think it's working. Is it working for you emotionally where you feel more spirited when you do a certain thing? Does it make you happy? Happiness is good. Happiness doesn't sound great. We don't sell a lot. We talk about success makes you happy. Well, what is success? Success is dictated by your happiness. But is your happiness dictated by your success? Maybe it is. What is success for you? Is success $1,000,000? Is success $100,000? Is success working more? Is success working less? I don't know, but pick, make a decision. And I talked about this the other day, right? Once we make our decision, it's about going in the direction we said we would. So if we're early in the journey, and I use the forest analogy, if you're dead smack in the middle of the forest, think of it like we're in the center of everything, so there's a big clock. There's 12 numbers on the clock. You can go in any direction. You can even go behind you and take your 6. And this is the only time behind you and in your 6 will be when you allow yourself to go back, because you're not really going back. What you're doing is making a decision. You're choosing a path. And when you make decisions and you choose a path, I'm not going to say that the path you choose is the easiest. It's certainly not to imply the path you choose is linear, in that all you're going to do is go straight on that path, but it doesn't mean the path is not going to go like this and it's not going to zig and zag from an obstacles perspective. But what you're doing when you make a decision and you go one direction, thank you. Red Rose thinks that's powerful. I got goosebumps. What you do when you choose a decision is that I'm only going to go straight in this direction. And here's what going straight in this direction does afford you. I know how to get back, but you're never going to go back. Even if you choose your 6, I'm going to turn around and walk in the direction of my 6. You only go straight because at minimum, I know what's back there. And if I go back there, I'm only going to wind up in the middle of the forest again. I don't want to be in the middle of the forest. I want to get out of the forest. Can I guarantee you that going to your 6, going to yourself, your 12, your 3, your 9 is going to get you out? No. Can I guarantee you that it's the easiest path? No. Can I guarantee you what's going to be in front of you? No, but I can guarantee you this. If you walk straight, you will get somewhere. And the further you walk straight, the further you walk away from where you were. And the further you walk away from where you were, regardless of the obstacles, regardless of the difficulties, you'll build character, you'll build grit, you'll build grind. You don't build grind, but you grind. You'll build all the characteristics of success. Why? Because you made a decision, and I don't know that I can express anything of more power to me, that not just choosing to do what I said I was going to do and showing up for myself, but continually showing up for myself. I get up at 3:30. I get on at 4. I do the cardio. All these things. It's boring, mundane, it's repetitive, it ain't sexy, it's not. But there's results, though. There's results. You get the red rose who's here for the next day, 2 days in a row. Are you that selfish or that hungry for things that have to be on such a grand scale that you can't you can't stack small wins? Knowing you're going in the direction that you're going in because you said you were going to go in it regardless of obstacles is a win, in that I'm only doing what I said I was going to do, and regardless of what's in front of me, I'm going to keep going. That's self-improvement. I said I was going to do this. I'm doing it. Now, at some point, because I believe in the power of optimism, and I don't want to make it overly pessimistic, I believe you'll get out of the forest. And the specific path you're on and the specific forest you're in, let's say it's a weight loss journey or a career goal journey or a dream. When you make it out of the forest and you've attained your goal, let's say like I wanted to get up to 190. I got to 190. You don't stop. You find a new forest. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you're in a room full of people and you when you first got into the room, like when I first got into management, and I first started sitting with all the executives, and the first time I got a seat at the table, it was like, oh man, this is dope. This is a dope table. But guess what happens when you keep going to the same seat over and over and over and over and over? You outgrow the room. That's also I promise you, God will not mislead you in that way. When you choose a direction and go, thank you. So Red Rose is gonna catch days 1 through 6 to catch up. What a blessing! Imagine that. Imagine that. You walk the path. So you complete the path. You complete or you find what you're looking for when you're walking that straight path. Once you got what you're looking for, you don't stay there and bask in the ambience. As I sent my wife the White Chicks gift. White Chicks is one of my favorite. I won't get into why we did that, but you know, you don't bask in the ambiance and the ambience, as he said in that line. It's not to say you don't enjoy the win. If you go on a journey and you succeed, you stand at the podium, you go through your acceptance speech, you thank God and universe and your family and everybody who was supportive of you on that journey, and then you find a new journey. Otherwise, in the same way that where you are today, if you make no moves, you'll stay there. Just because you got a little taste of success, you can't stay there. Or you flatline right there. You'll just, oh man, I got to this new room. What happens when you outgrow the room? It's uncomfortable, but you got to leave the room. The room is no longer for you. You've gotten everything you could out of the room, and ego and pride and the ability to feel dominant and feel comfortable will keep you in the room and will mislead you to thinking you've done something. And you have. It's dope. You know, after a while, getting a seat at the table, and then I've been promoted so many times now. You start to. So think about how this works. It's crazy, right? The journey of life when you're making decisions. When you first enter a room, there's a level of ignorance and naivete. You're not ready to speak. You're just there to listen. You're wet behind the ears. You go in the room, you shut your fucking mouth, you listen, you learn. Then when you listen and you learn, do me a favor, keep it, I think authenticity is an overused word today. But one of the things I'm very cognizant of, as I started today, about the do you rules, it's my own rules. When I learn from mentors, like I learned, this guy that wrote this in his book, I think he said one of the difficulties, I think it was Aristotle, or was it Marcus Aurelius? He said the difficulty with the people who followed these people is that there were too much of an echo. They kept repeating what he was saying. And back to what I was saying about the problem with people and seeing it in their view, in our view. You don't know what this person who wrote this book, you can read it and process it. You're not that person. And so because you're not that person, you won't experience it the same way. You shouldn't experience it the same way. And you can't relive it the same way. You're not a machine. Well, you're a machine in a lot of ways, but you're not a parrot. Like you want to be like, you're supposed to get better. That was one of the hardest things for me to do in leadership. Everybody who reports to me that I mentor, you got to have a successor. Who is your successor? If all right, I'm at a job right now. I have a pretty big role. One of the biggest things, I can never leave my job vulnerable in the way that if I hit the lotto, I don't play the lotto. This is my life lotto. And I leave this company, I leave it in a situation where I can hand the keys to somebody else. It's one of the most responsible things I could do. I own this department. If I leave, I'm going to give this person the keys. That person cannot do what I do, and I can't do what that person does. It's not an indictment on him, but I expect this. He knows how I did it. He got to do it better because you already saw how I did it. Don't repeat what I did because it took a lot of mistakes for me to do what I did. I'm showing you, I'm exposing you and giving you the wisdom to not make the same mistakes so you know certain things not to do. So in that way, as I was saying, you enter the room, boom, you're naive, wet behind the ears, shut the fuck up. You listen, you learn, you watch how people move, you watch how people speak, you watch how they draw the audience in, you watch how they persuade. Because, I'm on the opposite end of business where we buy products in IT, we buy products and we implement. So we have to be convinced that what you're selling, we want to buy. And in a lot of ways, you become the seller in that I'm looking at a product, I have a budget, and even though it's a multi-million-dollar budget, I can't be irresponsible with the budget. I have to convince my superiors. I got to go to my chief executive, and say, yo, this is the direction we want to go, and here's why. So it's dope in that I watch how people sell, and I learn what makes me a buyer, and then I learn how to sell and what makes other people a buyer. And what influences me may not influence you, may not influence Red Rose and whoever else is in the journey. So you're quiet, you learn. Then it's your opportunity to speak. And so you learn to take control of the room. You learn to ensure that people are listening. And this is where the selflessness comes in, and the self-domination is important. If you just like, yo, I'm going to tell everybody what I want them to hear, good. You're going to fall on your fucking face, because it's not you. It's not just you. The people around you have to buy what you're selling. And if you want to be successful in business or in any of your endeavors, outside of just like you're improving yourself, why? You're improving yourself because you want to be a greater contributor to the world and life. The universe is massive. The universe is working constantly. Like you know, the way your consciousness works, you have to go to sleep and shut down. The world, the universe, the stars, the planet, the sun, the moon, God, always working, always working, always working. So if you just want to, I said this the other day, right? I'm hyped. I think I need some water. I'm going to get back to what I was saying in a second. If you want to improve and you just want to do it for you, turn off all the lights, turn off your phone, turn off the camera. Don't tell nobody what you're doing. Don't record it. Don't post it. Don't write it. Don't do nothing. It's just for you. It's just for you. So it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, go in the dark and stay there. That's somebody who is like, yo, I don't want nothing to do with nobody else. I don't want no residual from my work and my effort. Says fucking nobody. And maybe there's 1% who is, I guess the word would be introverted. But who doesn't want to have appeal to the world? Who doesn't want to go out and sell to the world and have the world buy them? Of course you do. That is success. That's what makes you feel successful. So when you're out there and you finally get a seat at the table and now you're speaking to the table, you got to understand that it's a collective. It's a collective. You're part of a unit. And sometimes you're the leader. Sometimes you're in the middle. Sometimes you're all the way in the back. Sometimes you listen. Sometimes you speak. Sometimes you make the decision. Sometimes the decision is making for you. But at all times, you make the decision that you're involved in all decisions for your life. And when you're cognizant of that, then there's reciprocity of I contribute, I receive. It's like when they say, you know, when I go through some of my breath work, I feel like I inhale God because God is life. I release God because I take the breath, I release the breath. I take the breath, I release the breath. And if I didn't release my breath, I couldn't receive the breath back in return, right? Alan Watts says something to the effect of that. When you breathe in and breathe out, you're breathing in, you're accepting. When you're breathing out, you're releasing. And there's, to me, I took it, there you go. I took it as, because of how I learned life and how I believe in life, I breathe in and I inhale God. Because I am of God's essence and I am of God's being, because I am in the image of God. Now I'm a very small, and this is not self-deprecating talk. This is respect for, there's 8 billion people in the world, and God is not just, imagine the image of God to look like me. Nah, God is bigger than that. God is everything. God can't have a specific, like for you to say God looks like this, how could you limit God to a physical image? The audacity of you. My opinion, you don't like it? Whatever. My opinion. God is so much everything that there's no way I can put a visual on God, but I do know this: when I inhale God, well, when I inhale life, when I breathe, that keeps me alive, that I don't even have to think about breathing. That's my God. I release it to get it back. I release it to get it back. So in that way, in my relationships with people, in my relationships with life, when I yearn for success, I breathe it in. I inhale it. I let it marinate in my soul. I see how it hits me. I try to understand what it's telling me. And as I have it, as I'm inhaling it, as I'm in the front of the room or as I'm sitting down and taking it all in, I'm watching what it does. What does it do to me? How does it make me feel? Does it inspire me? Does it make me hate myself? Does it make me want to go harder? Does it make me want to go into a hole and go away? Does it make me crack? I pay attention. Then boom, I release it. And when I release it, I pay attention to what it does. Like when you release yourself into the world and onto the world because you're demanding success of the world, how is the world responding to you? How is the world hitting you? It's not just about what, like we gotta. I'm just saying, mindfulness of the reality that I went on this tangent because you listen and you talk, and when you talk, you want to make sure that you're being of benefit. I said it yesterday. The first life you should work on changing is your own life. Why? Because you want to be impactful to other lives. And if you're not at a service, performing a service for life, for other lives, inhaling God to let God go and ensure that God is everywhere and doing his thing, and that the essence of all is like, I talked about the meta meditation. If you don't believe that you should live in health, in peace, and with ease, and don't be selfish, the entirety of the world and every other human should experience health, peace, and ease. Why would you want to keep that for yourself? You can't be selfish. So boom, right? You start with a seat at the table, you listen, then you speak. And when you're accepted and when you dominate, because you got to dominate and score touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, and then you're paid, like you receive dividends, right? That's the thing too. I invest not for a quick play or a quick return on investment. I invest to keep my investment in there. And you're going to pay me dividends for my work, right? Every month I'm going to receive interest. Every 2 weeks, every month, every quarter, you're going to pay me interest on what I've invested to you. And then after you go from sitting and learning and listening to speaking, you go back to just listening. Because now you've learned everything you can learn, and then you've shown the world, and you've shown the room, and you've shown the people around you that I'm a G, I'm a beast, I'm an expert at this. Then you go back to listening so that you can understand and process where the next person that's speaking is at. You go back into ensuring now you're nurturing the room. You're giving back. The way that the room gave to you and gave you all this knowledge and wisdom, and it gave you the platform to display it, now you go back and you listen and you take your perspective and you add it into the other perspective of the room. And in that way, we build a powerful unit, we build a powerful team, and a powerful collective of people who can not just make decisions, because we're talking about making a decision today, right? 4:51, I want to be cognizant of time. Set a timer for 5 a.m. We want to essentially ensure that, like you talk about, I believe in dominance. The series I have recorded, I recorded yesterday, why you should, the ugly, the bad and the ugly of dominating the morning. So I went into the routine of why you should do it, the benefits of doing it, and then the ugly. There's ugly to everything. Like you're going to experience, some drawbacks and some setbacks and some pain and some adversity. There's no way around that. But you want to stick to your decisions. And more than anything, if you have an overarching framework to how you move and how you roll and how you think and how you apply, and it's all about receiving, releasing, receiving, releasing, I don't know how you can't go wrong. But once you reach and to close the loop on that room thing, so now you've listened, you've spoke, you've contributed. Now there's a point too, where if you've gotten everything you want, there's no need to move forward anymore. You can, if you want to just, let's say, I'm 44, right? I want retirement money, travel the world money, and peace and contentment to go everywhere with my wife by the time I'm 50. No worries, right? If you get it, if you say I want that $1 million and you get the $1 million and it's good, then you can stay there. Stay there. Now you got to do the work to maintain it. Don't get it twisted. You can't just get comfortable, but you could just get comfortable in, I know what it takes to maintain this. I'm going to stay right here. And if that's for you, cool. Stay in that room. But at this point, too, you got to have the room work for you, right? I talked about having, very briefly, successors. Who's going to help? Because when you lose the energy and you lose the drive. Once you get it, it's very easy to, you kind of just sit back and chill. That's the comfort zone. You want to stay in the comfort zone? Go ahead. I'm not going to knock you. But if you're not where you want to be, and this goes back to the forest, I'm in the room. I saw what it's like. I dominated. Now that you've done that, you got to leave the room. And then the process starts all over again. And that's also how you maintain a level of humility. Because just because you've learned something and have become an expert in a specific space, and the only thing you should be an expert on is yourself, you would learn that there's so much more you don't know. Every time I read a book and I accrue some knowledge, this is very standard. One of the things it does is it teaches me what I didn't know because I just read some shit I didn't know, which also means there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot I don't know. You can't be that ignorant because, again, there's 8 billion people having an experience. And just because you experienced it your way doesn't make it the only way. It doesn't make it the right way. It's just right for you. And so for me, I know I can have a tendency to be very arrogant. I've done that in my life. I've lived, I'm going to be 44 this year. Obviously, I'm balding. I lost my hair because that's what life gave me. Maybe it's from the stress. Maybe it's from whatever. But I'm not going to, I love being confident. I know what it takes for me to be confident. If I didn't speak to you with confidence, you'd be like, yo, who is this dude? So I also learned to not speak on what I don't know. A lot of the arrogance that was in me when I was growing my career was because I saw a level I wanted for my career and nothing was going to stop me. And the reality is, coming from broke, coming from the project, and you're exposed to this life where people have MBAs and doctorates and they're making big decisions and you're like on the lowest end of the totem pole. So I found that I had to be a little bit arrogant sometimes. Like, yo, you're not in the sense of get the fuck out my way. I'm going to tell you, I've always been honest. I'm going here. I'm moving here. I'm looking to get promoted 6 times in the next 10 years. If you're in my way, I will fucking move you because I got to get there. Right? And maybe it's not arrogance. Maybe it's just determination. But there was certainly I had to learn through success. Like when you get successful and you see things, it's very easy to compare. And I'm always very cognizant to not compare. Like it's easy for me to say I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the projects. I could go back and see the same people I grew up with sitting on the same bench. That's not cool. That to me, that's mean-spirited. How you know that person don't want to be there? That's your choice, not mine. It doesn't make me better. Also, I'm in an affluent community. I can look around and say a lot of other people are doing what I'm doing because there's this community. But also I know there's people doing things I can never do. There just is. I don't know that I'll be the most successful human ever. How do you determine that? In fact, I know more so than not, I certainly won't be the most successful person you've ever seen in your life. Because how dare I have the audacity to think those things? But I can also promise you, I'm going to get the success I'm looking for because I've already made a decision. And I've proven to myself that when I make the decision to make the decision, I can be successful. And that's 1,000 hours of self-improvement, right? Give yourself the confidence to know that when I take these steps and I choose a path, I know what it's like to fall on my face. I know what it's like to look in the mirror, wipe a little blood off my mouth. I know what it's like to look stupid in front of people. I know what it's like to have things fail and still go. And still go. And so in that way, make the decision, stick to the decision. When you've reached the success you're looking for, leave that room. Imagine being at the end of the forest and getting out. You can make a flank to the left. You can flank to the right. You could choose another choose another path, but not until the path you've chosen has been fully closed out. Along the way, God won't deceive you. Don't misconstrue obstacles and having to climb a mountain with, oh, this is not the way. It's still the way. And if you try to, that's the thing with, right? I want to make sure I drove that point before I forget it. You can't go back. You can't go back. You know you can't go back. You wind up in the middle. But if you deviate from the straight path because it got a little hard and there's a hill in the way and you go left and you go right, at minimum, you can't find your way back. And what happens when you can't find your way back? You're lost. Did I make a left here? Did I make a right here? Did I go back this way? Did I go? No. I don't have to worry. I just went straight. And that's also comforting for your mindset and for your soul to be like, all I did was go straight because I said I was going to go straight. And I said to myself, if I go this way, I can't go wrong. I can't go wrong. All right, I know I got a few minutes here. I want to make sure that in this Descartes books, there wasn't anything. Let me read these four wisdoms of philosophy, mind frames, or framework that he wrote in this book that I'm still processing and I think applies logically in some way. We're making decisions and we're sticking to them. He says here, I should have here shortly explaining wherein consists all the science we now possess and what are the degrees of wisdom at which we have arrived. So we're trying to gain wisdom here. We're making a decision. Decisions, compound effect of decisions. Thank you. Yes, Red Rose. Sorry I didn't see your message earlier. She said I spoke to her soul with the forest analogy. That's dope. Thank you, and I thank God that we were able to bless each other this morning. Okay, the wisdom for which we have arrived, right? The first degree contains only notions so clear of themselves that they can be acquired without meditation. Like there's some things that are obvious to you, depending on where you are in your life, based on the wisdom you've accrued in your life, and the fact that you are a being. That's my timer going off, excuse me. I'm gonna wrap this up here shortly. There's some things you don't need to meditate on. It's just obvious. If it's not obvious to you, you're not looking. And one of the points I made too about when you're learning, you realize so much of what you don't know. Realize too that when you're walking the forest path or when you're walking straight, don't be ignorant to the fact that you could have went, if you go to your 6, you could have went to the 12. You could have went the 1, the 2, the 3. You could have picked a different route. That's always going to weigh on you. And guess what? You should never know what those routes could have. You can wonder, but you'll never know what would have happened if you went that route. And that's the point and not the point. The point is you didn't choose that route. Be comfortable and accept that. That's difficult for us. The idea that I went the 6 and look at all these hills. Look at all these obstacles. Would it have been easier if I went a different way? Doesn't matter. You chose your way. Stay on that way. God put you there for a reason. All right. So the first degree contains only notions so clear themselves that they can be acquired without meditation. The second comprehends all that the experience of the senses dictates. That's powerful and dope in the way that when you start to practice mindfulness, yes, a blessing indeed, and stillness, 80% of how I read this before, 80% of how we experience our world is visual, right? And the eyes can be deceiving. That's why sometimes you got to close your eyes and you can still see. It's just you see a little different. And then also, one of the things I've learned with stillness, and this is why I don't run with headphones. I don't work out with headphones. I like to leave my mind and my other senses open. I want to experience the world. Also in the morning, I don't want to get hit by a fucking car because I can't hear. But I want to hear the sound of the wind, the leaves, the trees, the animals that run by because I live in the country now. But you have other senses. Heighten them. You'd be surprised how when they're all working together, what they do. The third, that which the conversation of other men teaches us, the conversation of other, we talked about this. What is the conversation of other men and what is it teaching us? Just remember, that's another man, woman, them, they, whatever these days. I want to be respectful to all. And it may be added as the fourth, the reading, not of all books, but especially of such as have been written by persons capable of conveying proper instruction, for it is a species of conversation we hold with their authors. I talked about what that means, right? The wisdom I provide to you, I work really hard, that I made a decision, and it's just, this is what I've learned. But of course, I read from other people. Of course, I learn from other people. Of course, I've had mentors. Of course, I'm influenced, because how could you not be influenced by other people? But also, in the same way, be mindful of who you allow to influence you. I I I I absolutely have like a filter. When someone's speaking to me, I'm very cognizant of, yo, what am I going to allow into my consciousness? And if you're all the way off from how I live, I erase you. I delete you. I don't let you, and I delete it from my brain. I don't just allow it to infiltrate my energy space and my I'm limited. I'm limited already. It's hard enough for me to be me than to start letting other people who I don't want to influence me. And so in that way, in the fourth point, that's why I'm very conscious. I have a framework for what I read, the type of material that resonates with me. It doesn't make me a life expert in every sense of the word, but if we're talking about 1,000 hours of self-improvement, I'm improving in this direction. I chose a direction. I stick to it. You know, a lot of things I might get into are metaphysics and physics and other things about spirituality, because it makes sense in the realm I'm in. I'm not gonna deviate and start reading about something entirely opposite of what I'm on. I stick to my path. I stick to my path. I go through my journey. I haven't reached anywhere near the end of my road for what I'm looking to do. And so in that way, there's nothing for me to look for except for what is on my path. I made a decision. I stick to my decision. So that's what I got for you today. This was really fun and dope. I'll be back tomorrow morning because that's the decision I made, right? Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.